I'm about to share with you a chilling Halloween legend that has taken root. It has been whispered for many years now that on All Hallows' Eve, a dark entity could be summoned if one were to stand alone in front of a mirror in the dead of night and chant Halloween backwards 3 times. Halloween backwards is Neewollah, and Neewollah is his name. Neewollah is said to be a pumpkin-headed, ghoulish creature that will come to claim your very soul, leaving you vanished from the mortal realm forever. One ominous October evening, in the heart of Seattle, nestled in the midst of the dark and rainy city, stood a popular college where 4 fearless and bold college kids decided to test the eerie legend. Among them were Lisa and her boyfriend Jake, and Lisa's dorm roommate Tayana, and her boyfriend Rico. They had all heard the tale, but dismissed it as mere superstition and child's play. With a mixture of trepidation and curiosity, they gathered in the girls' empty dorms, ready to confront what they deemed as nothing but a foolish child's fable. All except Tayana, that is, who was a little nervous about the entire idea of doing something so scary. It just felt wrong. One by one, each of them retreated to the bathroom, where the gloomy silence was only disturbed by the echoing words of Halloween, spoken backward 3 times. First to go was Jake, followed by Lisa, then Rico. Everyone had done it but Tayana, and it was her turn next. After all 3 emerged, they looked at Tayana, who stood silently in the corner of the room. She felt a growing dread, sensing that whatever lurked behind this sinister legend was real and dangerous. She had a terrible premonition that she couldn't ignore. Rico, Lisa, and Jake all urged her to go and recite the moniker in the mirror, assuring her that the legend of Neewollah was clearly a tall tale as there the 3 of them stood, still there, not having disappeared. Rico then calmly walked up to his girlfriend and softly grabbed her hand, kissing her face. "Baby," he said, "I promise you all of this is just a joke. We're just having fun. There's nothing to be afraid of. You know I've got you. Trust me," he smiled. Rico had a winning smile, and it always put Tayana at ease. Tayana laughed lightly, feeling silly for being so afraid. After all, it was just a stupid Halloween story, and her friends were still there, just like they said. She shook her head yes, prepared to enter the bathroom. Tayana went in, but the doubt swiftly returned again, and she hesitated as she approached the mirror, her reflection appearing distorted and grim in the dimly lit room. A heavy feeling of foreboding washed over her. It was as though the very darkness held its breath, waiting for her to make a choice. Tayana couldn't go through with it. She knew it was wrong, and that this legend was no mere superstition. Tayana started reciting in her head what she would tell her friends, but was interrupted by the sounds of screams and scrambling on the other side of the bathroom door. In a panic, Tayana quickly opened the door. The room felt like fire and was filled with heavy smoke. She saw Lisa and Rico heading towards the door in horror, screaming and crying. But there was no Jake. He was gone. Rico yelled at Tayana to go back into the bathroom and lock the door, his eyes pleading with hers. It was just then that she saw him. The infamous Neewollah stood there, a 10-foot-tall beast, with the appearance of everyone's worst nightmares. Neewollah moved swiftly, reaching out to Lisa. As he made contact, her terror-filled screams pierced the inky darkness, and then, just like that, she was gone. Tayana yelped and shook her head in disbelief. She had known they shouldn't have been playing with evil spirits, but deep inside she wanted to believe that somehow she was overreacting and they'd all be okay. She ran up to Rico, who was crying, busy trying to open the door, but the doorknob was so hot that every touch burnt his hand, sizzling his flesh. Tayana used her shirt to open the door, and as soon as Rico's right foot touched down into the brooding hallway, Neewollah swooped in, taking him up in a whirl of white smoke, and he disappeared. Tayana wanted to cry and grieve, but she knew better than to stick around. She didn't have time to be sad, and bursted into the long hallway to make her escape. Even though she hadn't participated in the eerie game, but continued to run as the fear crept like poison throughout her bones. Tayana ran as fast as lightning, looking behind her every few moments to make sure the dark spirit was not in sight. She kept running, bolting down the stairs, heading for the dark red front door, where on the other side of it, she knew she'd be safe in the city's open, wet streets. Relief washed over Tayana as her Hail Mary was in plain sight, as she had finally reached the door and stretched her hand out to open it. Her fingers brushed the cool metal handle just as a form started to materialize before her. Neewollah stood before Tayana, cloaked in darkness, wearing a twisted, evil smile. Tayana screamed in defeat as he silently reached for her bare throat, his eyes glowing with a gleeful malevolence. She hadn't even recited his hell-bound name in the mirror, but guilty by association, there was no way he would let her get away. Neewollah swept Tayana up into his billowing smoke, and as she vanished, all she could think about was how close she'd come to being free from the endless, empty pit of darkness that had become her. The legend had come to life, and 4 friends had unwittingly danced with the macabre forces of Halloween night. The tale of the college kids who dared to summon Neewollah served as a chilling reminder of the dangers that lurked in the murkiest corners of Halloween lore. In the aftermath of that fateful night, the legend only grew stronger and more terrifying, ensuring that no one would ever dare to challenge the darkness that lay hidden on All Hallows' Eve.
The old steel mill had stood abandoned for years, its towering, rusted beams now providing a stark backdrop for a Halloween party like no other. The flickering glow of jack-o'-lanterns and the eerie sound of ghostly laughter filled the air. Eager partygoers gathered in their most elaborate costumes, but one guest in particular stood out. He was a mysterious figure dressed as a mummy, his costume meticulously crafted to resemble an ancient Egyptian tomb occupant. His costume was not a cheap imitation, but a meticulously crafted work of art. The bandages were carefully aged and dirtied, and the face, hidden beneath layers of fabric, remained an inscrutable mystery. Wrapped in soiled bandages and covered in dust, he moved silently through the crowd, observing the other guests with an intensity that sent shivers down their spines, and a constant drawing of curious glances and whispers from those who crossed his path. But his gaze, in particular, was fixed on a young woman named Kristen, who had dressed as a sexy nurse. Kristen couldn't help but notice the peculiar man in the mummy costume. Throughout the evening, his unbroken silence and unwavering attention made her increasingly uncomfortable. She had assumed that he was just a dedicated partygoer, fully committed to his character, but there was something about his presence that felt off. As the night wore on and the party heated up, Kristen found herself inadvertently separated from her friends. She decided to take a moment to catch her breath and stepped into a quieter area of the steel mill. The mummy, however, was never far behind. With each passing minute, Kristen's anxiety grew and her heart raced. She was determined to lose the strange mummy and find her friends. Her footsteps echoed in the cavernous space, but the sound of muffled, bandaged feet followed closely. Suddenly, the mummy lunged at her, his bandaged hands outstretched. Kristen let out a scream and tried to escape, but his grip was unyielding. She struggled to free herself, her nurse's costume feeling woefully inadequate for the situation. As the mummy's grip tightened, Kristen, in a last-ditch effort, reached for the bandages covering his face. With a desperate pull, she unraveled the layers, revealing what lay beneath. To her shock and horror, Kristen stared into the hollow sockets of a real mummy's face, its desiccated flesh stretched taut over bone. This was no mere costume. Her screams echoed through the steel mill, and her discovery sent a ripple of fear through the party. As others rushed to Kristen's aid, they too recoiled in horror at the sight of the real mummy that had been lurking among them. It was then that they realized the chilling truth. The party had unwittingly provided a stage for an ancient evil to walk among the living. The mummy had returned from the dead, and it was clear that he had unfinished business from beyond the grave. The Halloween party at the old steel mill had gone from a playful celebration to a nightmarish encounter with the supernatural. The steel mill, once a place of industry and production, now echoed with the terrified cries of the partygoers. As they fled from the ancient terror they had unwittingly awakened, they knew that this Halloween night would forever be etched in their memories as a night when the line between the living and the dead had blurred. The living dead was walking amongst the living, and there was no going back.